You would think that after the utter disaster that was Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League's launch, Warner Brothers executives would learn the lesson and understand why this game failed so epically, what works for them, stuff like Hogwarts Legacy, and would lean more towards that direction, but it seemed as though the executives have only learned the wrong lesson from all of this. I don't need to recount the poor critical reception of this game. You can see it on Metacritic, you can see it on OpenCritic with only 17% of critics recommending this game. On Steam, you can see that there is a paltry number of reviews, and looking at player numbers right now, we're looking at mid to low hundreds, which is abysmal for a live service. This is not going to last. I mean, I'd be shocked if it lasted the year, frankly. And even if it does, it is just them kind of scraping by and them trying to salvage something that is just not possible to be saved. Marvel's Avengers had better all-time peak numbers, and that died. We have Gotham Knights having better all-time peak numbers than Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. Even the single-player game Batman Arkham Knight right now not only has a better all-time peak and also is from Rocksteady Games, but also its current peak number of players is in the 3,000s, which is significantly higher than Suicide Squad's. It goes to show that people just straight up miss the Rocksteady of old, who made awesome campaign-driven single-player action-adventure experiences that made you feel like the superheroes or comic characters that the game represented. And even Warner Brothers, by their own admission, straight up said that Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League has fallen short of their expectations. It did not meet the sales numbers that they hoped to achieve. It is not monetizing at the level that they want. Now, they haven't shared exact sales figures, which further highlights how embarrassed Warner Brothers is of the commercial performance of this game. And even looking at Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League standing on consoles, you can see that the game has fallen out of PlayStation's top 10. It's even fallen out of Xbox's top 50. It doesn't get worse than this for a live service. In stark contrast, you have something like Hogwarts Legacy, which was just a video game, and it went on to do tremendously well, and a lot of people genuinely enjoyed that experience because it was created with the purpose of sort of immersing you in the world of Harry Potter, in the world of Hogwarts. It wasn't created as a monetization machine. First and foremost, it was made to be a great campaign experience that was not disrupted by shady monetization tactics that disrupted the gameplay flow, the rewards loop and progression loop and all these things. They created an experience that fits the IP and that sort of purely retains the essence of what this game can achieve at its full potential, rather than kind of taking IP and making it into a genre that doesn't make a whole lot of sense for it. Turning Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League into a generic live service looter shooter just completely diminished the game's identity and the character's uniqueness and the like, and I think that had a drastically negative impact on the overall experience. But the lesson that Warner Brothers took away from all of this, or specifically Warner Brothers Discovery gaming boss JB Perrette, who spoke recently during a Morgan Stanley speaking event, was that the AAA games landscape is just too volatile, and therefore they need to transition more into live services, free-to-play, and mobile experiences. Here are some of the quotes that were relayed by this executive. He said, "We're doubling down on games as an area where we think there is a lot more growth opportunity that we can tap into with the IP that we have and some of the capabilities we have on the studio, where we're uniquely positioned as both a publisher and a developer of games. Rather than just launching a one-and-done console game, how do we develop a game around, for example, a Hogwarts Legacy or Harry Potter that is a live service where people can live and work and build and play in that world in an ongoing basis?" See, this now makes me deeply concerned for Hogwarts Legacy 2 and the direction that it might go in and the kind of greedy corruption that might seep into its design. Another portion of Perrette's statement was transcribed by PC Gamer here. Scrolling down, you can find him saying that our business historically has been very AAA console based. That's a great business when you have a hit like Harry Potter. It makes the year look amazing, referring to Hogwarts Legacy. And then when you don't have a release, or unfortunately we also have disappointments, we just released Suicide Squad this quarter, which is not as strong. It just makes it very volatile. He further added that he wants to take a more holistic approach with their 4 core franchises, Mortal Kombat, Game of Thrones, Harry Potter, and DC, with a particular focus on expanding into the mobile and multi-platform free-to-play space, which could give us a much better and more consistent set of revenue. To that end, Warner has a number of free-to-play mobile games set to roll out later this year. I just don't comprehend the logic here. You've got a game like Harry Potter Hogwarts Legacy that became 2023's best-selling game, and that wasn't a live service, where Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League was positioned as a live service, and that failed. So your logic is, let's lean more towards live services instead of those campaign-driven experiences that have more of that purity and aren't corrupted by shady monetization and the intent to monetize long-term. Straight up, Hogwarts Legacy was the first game in over 15 years to dethrone the likes of Call of Duty or a Rockstar game when it comes to sales, achieving a total sales number of a whopping 22 million copies sold by the end of 2023. That is a massive success. And it wasn't just the Harry Potter IP, the Harry Potter name, that carried this game's sales. We've seen games like Marvel's Avengers, which carries the seminal Avengers IP name, flop, and we've also seen past Harry Potter releases sell nowhere near as much as Hogwarts Legacy. The reason people bought Hogwarts Legacy to the extent that they did, the reason it sold so well, was because both it had that IP name, but also it was a high quality game that represented Hogwarts and the world of Harry Potter in a way that hasn't been realized before. The fidelity of just the graphics and the visuals and the environment combined with the gameplay and the way you kind of really felt like you were inhabiting this world that, you know, lives in the hearts and minds of so many people. And a big part of that had to do with Hogwarts Legacy not being positioned as a live service game, but rather something that was just a neat, tight campaign package that was not wholly corrupted by this intent to keep this game going forever. It had a beginning, middle, and end. It was an enjoyable experience. It wasn't something that way overstayed its welcome or completely disrupted its rewards and progression loop by trying to stretch it out in a way that didn't feel natural and in a way that made the experience overly grindy or just overly drawn out. It was just the package that it was meant to be, and the developers created something that really appealed to a lot of people because they weren't trying to artificially extend the lifespan of this game or trying to artificially find ways to kind of insert issues in the game that you could only essentially resolve by paying for the solutions, by paying for the conveniences that these kind of microtransaction stores tend to sell. Hogwarts Legacy was by no means a perfect experience, but it is without question the best Harry Potter game we have gotten, and they did so at a AAA level, at a high budget level, where this felt like a really meaty and substantial game. It didn't feel like it lost its identity along the way through development because of certain mandates in regards to how this game had to be monetized or how it had to be maintained as a long-term thing. The only thing that is volatile about AAA games is the way they're managed and the way they're budgeted, combined with the mandates that are behind them. If you let the developers cook, if you let them make the best game possible that prioritizes fun above all else while leveraging just the fame of your IPs, you get something like Hogwarts Legacy. Whereas if you take an IP like Suicide Squad and corrupt it with generic live service looter shooter mandates that make the game lose its identity and make it lose its potential, you get a failure like Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League, where word spreads about the fact that this game is just not it. I mean, there are some short burst moments of fun to be had with the game, but overall its campaign disappoints, its end game disappoints. As a live service, it disappoints. As a looter shooter, it doesn't do anything extraordinary. There are much better looter shooters out there, and compared to Rocksteady's past endeavors, Suicide Squad comes nowhere close to having that kind of seminal impact that something like the Arkham series did. So instead of concluding that the solution now is to lean more towards live services and free-to-play and mobile and all of the things that made Suicide Squad fail critically and commercially, why not lean towards the things that made something like Hogwarts Legacy succeed, leveraging an IP properly to create a game that is well-suited for the IP and creating a genre that makes sense without trying to force it into a mold that doesn't fit, like a looter shooter or a live service or just anything that is more intended to monetize rather than to maximize the potential and the fun and the kind of creative and artistic potential of an IP. Why don't you just go on a roll with more releases that are akin to Hogwarts Legacy rather than trying to lean into the qualities of Suicide Squad that made it a failure. It just like, it doesn't make any sense to me. If you make a AAA game that is fun and pure in its essence and fully realizes the intent of the developers, that is well managed and well budgeted, it'll make money. People will buy the game. Hogwarts Legacy is proof of that. It's like the best thing you've done in a long time, Warner Brothers. And the fact that your conclusion from that is, let's not do more of Hogwarts Legacy and let's just lean into the live service and all the awful stuff and all of the unfortunate elements that corrupt an experience like Suicide Squad. The fact that that is your solution and your takeaway from all this goes to highlight how freaking delusional executives are. And you want to do this during a time when the live service market is more oversaturated than ever before, when we're seeing so many live services come out as kind of mid and completely flop, like Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League, like Skull and Bones, which do not compare to the live services that are currently thriving. Your Fortnites, your Final Fantasy 14s, your Destiny. So even Destiny right now seeing something of a lull. Your Apex Legends and whatnot. Those are up there as kind of the kings of live services. Helldivers 2 right now is thriving as a long-term game because it prioritized fun above all else with a $40 price point with monetization that is nowhere near disruptive enough to affect the incredibly fun and chaotic gameplay experience. I mean, recently Sony had to dial back their live service plans. They were planning on making basically every IP into some kind of live service and had a bunch of projects in the work, and they recently cut and canceled a bunch of live service projects that are only focused on a handful now because they realize just how oversaturated the market is, how many live services continue to fail, and realize that just making live services one after another under the same umbrella is just an awful idea because they're all going to be competing against each other because they all ask for unlimited time from people, and people don't have unlimited time. They can only take on so many live services, so making everything into live services for the long term is just not sustainable. You need those games that are limited in their scope, that have a beginning, middle, and end, that are a one and done kind of experience that people can remember fondly, that can sell en masse to drive your business and not make everything about live service, especially when live services are so prone to fail in this age. We have seen so many flop and result in, financial woes for companies who just didn't have basic foresight. I'm just so thoroughly baffled by Warner Brothers' takeaway from Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League's failure. I suppose I shouldn't be surprised. I mean, executives tend to just lose the forest for the trees. But it's still just, it makes me angry to kind of think about the potential that is lost for IPs that they've mentioned here, and the fact that they're kind of taking them in a direction that will diminish the potential quality of games from these IPs. Everything wrong they could have learned from Suicide Squad's failure, they did. Or at the very least, that's one man's take. Let me know in the comments below what your thoughts and opinions are on what Warner Brothers had to say about Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League's failure. This whole idea that Suicide Squad highlights how big budget games are very volatile, and in turn, their goal is to shift and double down on live services, on free-to-play and mobile. Share your thoughts in the comments below, and to be further updated on all things gaming news, reviews, and discussions, stay tuned right here on Young Yeah. I'll see you guys next time. Young out.